is from the article from Tuesday, which was talking about plastic and a little bit of the history about it and how maybe the use of it and how useful it is has kind of changed over time. But I want to see what you all remember from the article. What were some of the main ideas that it talked about? I know you were all here, so hopefully everybody remembers at least a little bit about the article. Who wants to go first? Crickets. Is everybody here? Everybody awake? Everybody's very quiet. Nobody remembers anything about the article, really. Doesn't have to be a lot. Konstantin, thank you.
So yes, and thank you, and excuse me, please, for such silent reaction. So I remember just a few, and it about the plastic impact in general, and about the invention of this material and the reason why it was invented. So it also maybe we can call it as a little review about invention such material as plastic, and also about maybe the aim of this article to change our attitude to plastic in general. So we have now a big problem with ecology and with plastic. I'm not sure how it called properly, but then it is became so it's maybe decay or something like that. So this physically, this material have a very strong ability to decay for very long years. So that is the problem. But meanwhile, we have a lot of advantages, and then the plastic was invented. It was such kind of revolution and very much advantages. And now, if we say around, look on our homes, so we find a lot of things made of plastic. So impact is huge. And also maybe another part of article is about how attempt of the researcher and scientist to reuse this material, or maybe about this processing, and I don't know how it will be in English, but decay, it's not maybe so clear, it's not exact, but it is about how this plastic have impact on our planet in general, and also so about article mentioned about some technologies like invention like enzymes, and maybe it's some chemical, or I'm not sure, organical way to process the plastic and to maybe recycle it, and also about recycling and upcycling, and maybe also plastic as material have great impact to design industry, to furniture, and to whole our life. So we shouldn't, we have not underestimate and remember the plastic is just a very useful material, and it still used for long years since 1960s when it was invented and popularized. So it's still one of most popular material on the earth. That's it. Maybe that's all I remember. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic. Yeah, when you're talking about decay, sometimes we do use the word decay. Sometimes we use decompose, and sometimes we talk about degrade and degradation. Because with some plastics, they don't actually completely break down. They just kind of get into smaller and smaller pieces, but they never actually disappear like organic materials do. Which is why we use like the idea of a degradation rate, which is about like how long it takes for something to break down. There's actually another term, like I think half-life, or I can't think of what the term is. I'm going to keep searching for it to see if I can find it. But I know that there's another term that we use as well to talk about like how long something lasts after it's been discarded, basically. And I think that word is the one you're looking for as well. So I'll see if I can remember it. But in the meantime, Manu, what do you remember? What can you add?
Yes, thank you. Yes, the article was, as Konstantin said, was about plastics and its use, and there were two displays in museums telling the story of plastics. And as Konstantin said, it started in the 60s of last centuries, the popularity of plastic, but even before, there was some attempts to use this new material. For instance, there was celluloid, who was thought to be a good replacement for ivory, because in the 19th century, billiard balls were very popular, and they were made of ivory, so it was not sustainable to keep manufacturing this billiard ball with ivory, and then they came up with this new material, celluloid. And also researchers found that celluloid was a very malleable material. It was also made in very thin strips that were transparent and flexible, so it was very useful also for the photographic material to use, and also for movie pictures. So it was a very useful material. And also bakelite, I don't know if I pronounce it right, was another material they came up with in the first decades of the 20th century, because there was a large kind of insulating of households, so they need a very cheap material to manufacture sockets, light switch, and other parts of the electrical plant inside the households. So and also for the first electrical appliances such as radios and other appliances, was very useful to use this bakelite, which was the first synthetic material. There was an inventor of this material. and also there was the use of plastics skyrocketed in the years after Second World War because it was very useful not to use natural materials such as steel, silk, rubber, for instance, and they replaced these natural materials with synthetic plastics, for instance, for parachutes, hammocks, and mosquito nets. For instance, they came up with a plastic substitute, and also for mobile radar station, which if made of plastic was very light and useful to be carried aboard aircrafts. So it resulted very useful in this respect. And then after World War II, the consumption of and the production of plastics, especially in the US, quadrupled. So there was this very thriving petrochemical industry, and they came up with all sorts of new kind of plastics to manufacture, to shape any kind of object. Then there was this idea of the wipe clean world. So, for instance, also for toys for children, there was this in the 70s of the last centuries, maybe something like that. There are new toys such as Hula Hoop, the Frisbee, the Lego, the Barbie. So anything changed in our life, and also containers for refrigerators, the Tupperware, and also other objects. Everything around us was made of plastics, virtually made of plastics. And also it is interesting that from demand-driven kind of plastic, there was the supply-driven, because the petrochemical industry wanted to flood our lives with even more plastics, and then they hired a designer just to came up with ideas how to use it. So it was interesting, this fact. And also the turning point in the use of plastic was when they came with the idea of disposable. So until maybe the years after the Second World War, there was this idea that if you had anything made of plastics, it was expected to endure maybe all your life. So you didn't think of throwing away your object. But in order to find even more markets for their products, they came up with this idea of disposable. So you had to buy even more plastics items. It was interesting that in the early stage of vendor machines, people usually kept their plastic cup after taking their coffee, so to reuse them for a second time. So it was very interesting, and from that moment on, this idea of disposable catched on with people. So it was the bad point in using of plastics, because we started to pollute our world. And then there is this idea of changing our mentality. So came up with common object, but made of more sustainable materials. So, for instance, brands like Adidas came up with trainers which could be shredded after they used when worn out, in order to product a new pair of trainers, for instance. And also, brand like IKEA came up with furniture made of recycled PET. And also interesting, at the end of the article, I read that someone came up with furniture made of manure, which is very absurd to think of, because it could be an off-putting idea to use manure for anything in your life, but they thought it was a fun idea and also a possible practical idea. So at the end of the article, they said it is just our service who have to think about a more resonant use of plastics, not to waste it, and just use it where we really need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic. Yeah, I think you covered a lot of the main ideas here. This idea that, okay, when we started using plastic, maybe it was actually kind of a positive thing. It maybe helped the environment in some ways by replacing other kinds of natural materials that we were using instead. So it might have been positive at the start, but it kind of turned negative when we started using the disposable plastic. When they kind of discovered that this could be a good way, or a good way to sell it to people, basically. And that's maybe where our problems with plastic started. I thought it was interesting as well, this part about the other materials. Although, like you, I'm not sure if furniture made from manure is really something I would want in my house. I mean, I'm sure they make it so that it doesn't smell or it doesn't look like manure anymore, but I would still know that it's manure. So I'm not sure that I could be that kind of inventive, let's say, or creative. I think that I would stay away from it. Okay. So, first question for everyone then. What's your feeling about plastic? Do you think that overall plastic is something positive for us, something good, or do you think it's a little bit of a villain, something maybe negative in the world? Which side do you think is stronger, the positive side or the negative side of plastic? Artem?
Thank you. Knowing that the plastic for now is really popular across the world, like there is no place that there is almost no place that has no plastic. It's used almost everywhere, and sometimes it might not be the best option, but unfortunately, it's right now. There are yes, there are actually good sites. We have but it just has to be controlled into some way, like the. Plastic is helping in a lot of ways. It's even used in planes. So it's not like it's really bad, but sometimes there is just too much plastic. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just sometimes too much.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a good way of looking at it as well. It's not so much about it being good or bad in general, it's just that sometimes there's too much. If it's being used in the right way, maybe, or if it's being used for the right things, okay, it could be something positive. If it's used too much or in the wrong way, maybe it's kind of negative. What does everyone else think? How do you see plastic? Is it something positive, something beneficial? Is it something negative? Is it somewhere in the middle? Manu?
Yes, I think it's positive. The problem is just that you should have come up so far of an efficient way to degrade it, to recycle it. I mean, we should have the technology to turn used plastic into new plastic. I can't understand why it is still impossible or maybe not so efficient. But in general, it is positive to have plastics. I was thinking, for instance, of sanitation. For reason of sanitation, thinking just, for instance, of water. In many places, you couldn't maybe just drink water as it, because it is contaminated, it is polluted with some germs, some bacteria. So maybe you should, otherwise you should boil your water anytime. But if you use bottled water, it could be more hygienic, maybe sometimes. And also in hospitals, when you have where you have disposable items, I don't know, maybe any kind of items is used in hospitals. It is important for hygiene, for your sanitation, to throw away many plastics objects. I don't know, maybe also, I don't know, the gloves using for surgery, for instance. So I think in many sectors it is important to have disposable plastics items, but in other maybe not so much. Maybe it is more rich countries, they have to come up with methods to reduce the plastic consumed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe this is even one step further. It's maybe we need to specify it's not all disposable plastic items which are maybe should be replaced or aren't so useful. It's just maybe specific types of these disposable items, because as you said, like in some kind of environments, I think they probably are the best. You know, I would much prefer, if I was going to have surgery, that they were using something, you know, hygienic, plastic, one-time use only, than something maybe that was, you know, plastic that was reused in a number of different surgeries. So this is definitely maybe one situation where disposable plastic is probably a better option than other kinds of things. Okay, well, actually, maybe that's my next question for you all. What other kinds of situations can you think of where plastic is maybe the best option for that object? What other situations can you think of where we should maybe be using plastic for something, where you think it's a good idea to use plastic instead of some other kind of material? Artem?
It's really good for something lightweight. For example, as we were speaking, there was parts that were made of plastic even on airplanes. Like there, I'm not sure, I do not remember how this thing called, but it's basically replaces the glass. And there are also lots of other things that can be made in. Yes, it's a canopy. There are also things that basically basically everything can be made using this. Even pens uh, uh, you can use plastic, so they could be easy. So they could so you could easily sell them everywhere. And plastic right now is not like the material that will like there is just too much of it. But there are ways to use it. In
Yeah, things like that. I guess that the canopy, it's sorry, let me try again. It's something where one of the characteristics of plastic, the fact that it's so light, is kind of important to help. And it's also something that obviously is going to be used over and over and over again. You know, it's not something that gets replaced every single flight. So in that sense, it's one of those things, okay, this is a good use. It's maybe going to last a little bit longer than if it was just made of glass. It's lighter, which is going to help, you know, reduce costs and probably the environmental effect of the plane in general. And it's going to last for a long time. You know, you're going to use it for a long time. So that's maybe a positive use of plastic. Okay, what other examples can you think of? What other examples are there? Konstantin?
I just I'm not sure. I have to say the one example because all around and for 15% for now contains of plastic. So a lot of examples. In instance, let me give you an example. For example, it will be a car. So it contains also its details contain a lot of plastic and also as was mentioned in article, it's just kind of on-demand material. So it is inevitable humanity will invent such kind of material. It is composite and it's high technology and almost every field of our life faced with using plastic materials. Almost 99% of our common life contained plastic details. So it's a very big impact. So we have to remember it. And the problem is only the recycling and maybe degradation. Yes. Maybe, yes. And also, if you know the problem, even our ocean contains some kind of material that called microplastic. So it's products of decay of plastic. So it's very dangerous for our planet, and we have to make a collective decision. So I'm not I think it is not real to reduce all plastic in the one moment. So we have to transform it and maybe use it more responsibly, and I mean recycling, and that material have such characteristics as durability, and maybe it's about some resilience also, and it's some new material, and it's still new for us because its characteristic is not observed in full. So for example, some even building materials also contain of plastic in its structure. So we say about some composite material, it is not only the pure plastic, but plastic with relation with another material and working as a part of construction. And it's also industry, our industry in general. We have a lot of plastic covering or something like that, and all our computers and laptops and smartphones, all it contains a plastic. So there are many examples, too many. So in general, is material have maybe most one of the most important material in human life nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, obviously there are a lot of different things that contain plastic or that use plastic. I was kind of interested though in finding out which ones you think are good uses of plastic, or ones maybe that we should continue, compared to, actually maybe we can talk about the other side of this as well. So uses of plastic that you think, yeah, good uses of plastic, ones that, maybe using plastic is a different type of, is better than using a different type of material. For example, the billiard balls. I think we would all agree that maybe it's better to make billiard balls from plastic than to make it from ivory, right? Considering that ivory comes from the tusks of elephants. That's not a good use. We want to preserve the elephants. So this kind of thing I was thinking of, where maybe plastic is the best material that we could use for something. Konstantin?
Excuse me, please, but I am not sure about some good example of good use of plastic, because all of cases are good. For example, you mentioned a billiard ball. Yes, it's used from plastic, and we don't use ivory or material, and we don't kill animals. But we have a greenhouse effect, and we have it's the same problem that we had before. So it's about pollution of our planet. Yes, it's nice we made it from plastic, but it's not matter. It's nothing changed. So every material we have, every goods we have, I mean every things we have made of plastic has its own good impact for our life. So it's useful, and it's make many advantages. But meanwhile, the same material have these threats for our planet. So for my opinion, all examples of using plastic is good, but the impact and maybe downside of the using plastic is the pollution. So it's kind of dilemma or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, obviously we have to think as well about what happens to it afterwards, but I still think there are probably some materials or some objects that we have that it makes more sense to make them out of a different material instead of making it out of plastic, that there's not really a good reason to make it out of plastic. And we could make it out of other materials without losing any functionality or any kind of use. I don't think that plastic is the best material to use for every single object we have. Maybe then let's look at this side of it. No, plastic forks. Why do we need to have plastic forks? Plastic isn't the best material for a fork. It's weak, it breaks, it's difficult to clean. I don't think that plastic is the best material to make a fork out of. We can make them out of metal, we can make them out of wood, we can make them out of a lot of other things, which I think they're much better materials. So this is kind of like an example. I think that, you know, don't think about just, is this object useful? Think, is this the best material to make this object out of? Maybe think about it that way. So along those lines, what kind of items do you think we have that are maybe made of plastic at the moment that you think would be better if we use different materials to make them from? That maybe it would be better to use them from other kinds of materials, that maybe we could stop making them from plastic? Maybe have a look around you right now, see what you can see around you, and pay attention to maybe different things that are made out of plastic and say, is this the best thing we could use, or could we make this out of something else? Konstantin?
For my opinion, we're doomed to use plastic for the upcoming decades. And also, for example, Artem mentioned plastic bags, and I remember the time, when I was young, it was kind of our Ukrainian way to greenwashing. Then my parents and my grandma, they washing plastic bags to use it repeatedly. It was the time, we maybe have to change our attitude and use it more longer. And I forget this word, but Mano mentioned it about the use only for once. So maybe we have to use as much long as it is possible, and it is responsibly, and it is good. But we have to popularize in our country and in general, yes, disposable. And plastic, maybe it's some useful invention, and in general, maybe it's not suited for all the things, but we have to live with it, and we can reduce it in the moment, because our technology and our civilization now maybe based on this material. Most of our technologies based on this material. And also, if we I want to share with you, for example, this material, then the glassing of windows is special and is safe for people because it's no shards and it's more strong. And this it contains of some layers. For example, one first layer is a glass, and between them it's plastic. And after the next layer is also glass. So it's some example of composite material, and plastic already so deep in our technologies, and it looks like you don't see plastic, but it is the material contains it, and a lot of such kind of materials you even can't imagine it contains plastic, but almost 90% of materials already contain it. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe then my question for everybody is, what do you think we should do about plastic? Should we be trying to stop using it? Should we be trying to recycle it? Should we be trying to make different kinds of plastic? What do you think we should be doing here? Because I think we can agree that there's some negative effects of plastic, right? That maybe it's not a good thing to have everything made of plastic. But how do you think we should be addressing this? Artem?
I guess we should at least replace it where it's possible. Like for example, plastic bags. We've been talking about there are just too much of them, and there is actually a way. For example, we could replace we replace them with something that we can actually recycle easily in case it's it's gonna somehow make an impact to the environment. Just also it would be better to stop producing new types of plastic unless it is helpful. Like like I said, there are things that plastic can make more light and help make the use more comfortable, like make it make the make ways to find ways to somehow another ways to produce something. Just find find the way find some better alternatives in the first place. Because plastic wasn't invented just because they can. There is just must be better alternatives. But we must work. I think we must work on it. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe there's a few different things that we need to do. It's not just about one action, it's maybe a group of different actions to try to deal with it. Manu, what do you think?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we should think of a more sustainable use of plastics, and get rid of this idea of disposable, because I think, for instance, just in richer Western countries where there is no problem with sanitation, we can throw away our bottles of our plastic bottle. I mean, don't use plastic bottles every time, but for instance, turn to aluminum kind of bottle that can reuse. You can just fill your aluminum bottle with water from your tap in your house. Maybe keep it in the refrigerator, and use it during your day, and then having it used again the next day. So instead of buying every day one plastic bottle, you can use this kind of aluminum bottle. I have one kind of aluminum bottle, for instance. Once in a while, you have to wash it with soap, but you can reuse it any day. So it is an option not to waste so much plastics. And also, I think try more compostable kind of plastics. For instance, as was written down for grocery bags, for instance. You can use this compostable made of organic or vegetable materials, for instance, because they are resistant enough for you to carry your grocery home. And also improve the research. I think in the future they must be able to come up with a new kind of bacteria, for instance, which can specifically feed on plastic. So using the plastics, the chemical elements contained in any kind of plastic to feed themselves and turn plastic into some more simple elements to get rid of that are not so much polluting. I think they could research in this way. And also, I think when fuel for cars will be replaced by electric cars, there will be less petrol and so less petrol byproducts. So we should overcome this plastics addiction and thinking of some new materials, some new, maybe some sort of long-lasting kind of plastics too. So plastics that can be used again and again without losing its characteristics. It could be possible maybe because there is a lot of research of new materials nowadays. So maybe they can think of something like that. Because plastics has these very important characteristics of malleability. They are very flexible. So they can think of a new material, I think something like that, because for instance, in the space research, they are already testing some kind of new materials. Maybe in the future we could replace plastic as we know it now with this kind of new technological materials. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's maybe a few different angles to look at it. Thinking about where we're using it and questioning if that's the best material to use in that situation, swapping plastic things for other things, and then also swapping some plastics for different kinds of plastics, ones that maybe can be reused or can kind of last longer. So we're maybe encouraging, yes, we know it's going to last a long time, but that's the point. The idea is that you have something that you're going to use kind of over and over again. And it's not just something that's going to kind of end up in the trash after a really short amount of time. So two types of swaps there, I guess. Konstantin, what do you think?
So, in the other hand, we have an opportunity, for example, using more natural materials. It implies killing of animals and using fossil resources like stones for the billiard. Uh, uh, and maybe for a lot of material, and we have to make a decision. So to leave wipe cleaning conception imply maybe using some natural materials, but requirements of humanity is huge, and we have not a lot of natural materials. So that's why I told before the invention of plastic was inevitable, because we have some synthetic material, some artificial material, and it's just need of humanity to invent some kind of material, and reducing of plastic, it mean we maybe throw back to the medieval time or something like that. So it's technologies, and we have to just take it in account, that fact, and we have to live with it, and continue to live. So plastic is not good or bad material. It is just material. It's about chemistry. Maybe it's organic chemistry and non-organic chemistry. So it's about chemistry in general. It's only the material, and how we use it. It depends on our responsibility. I mean, our as a humanity, or every one of us in person. Thank you. And I'm not sure I answer, or I just repeat the one thing for many times, so excuse me, please. That's only text that I only say today. Thank you.
I think you've got a very strong opinion on this idea that we have to live forever with plastic, which I think we all agree with. I don't think anybody is arguing against you there.
So how it can be bad? How it can be bad for us if we can't reduce it? We have to just live with it. But how it can be bad or don't useful for us? I just maybe understand your question in not clear way. So it's just necessity to use it, and I'm not sure all material can be bad. It depends of the intention maybe you use it. Thank you.
Exactly. And that's why I think we need to ask ourselves, okay, what are the good uses of plastic and what are the bad uses of plastic? Because like every other material, there's some situations that it could be used, that it could be good, and there's some situations that could be bad. And so we need to decide which is which. And I don't believe that all use is good. Okay, maybe I'll ask everybody else. Adam, Manu, what do you think? Do you think all use of plastic is good, or do you think some use of plastic is bad? I don't think plastic use is black or white. I'm not saying that we should never ever use plastic ever again, because I agree that there's some parts. I think plastic is a good invention. I think that there are some really important things that we need to be made out of plastic. But I think at other times, yeah, there are better alternatives. There are other things that we could and probably should be using instead of plastic, to try to reduce the kind of impact that it has on the environment. But I definitely can't say that all use of plastic is good. Yeah, why not? Manu, I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not, but I agree with it. Let's have wooden toys, for example. They don't have to be made from plastic. So this isn't like 100% yes or 100% no kind of question. Manu?
Yes, I was thinking that maybe children toys are mainly done of plastics and are kind of items that are going to be thrown away soon. Imagine, for instance, this kind of toys made of very soft kind of toy animals. You know, when children play with them, and then they are going to throw them away, I suppose, because there isn't a second-hand market for this kind of toys. Maybe there could be something like that, but maybe parents don't want children's toys used by other children because they think they are dirty, they are not good for children. They think they could get sick after playing with the same toys. There is a lot of waste in terms of plastic children toys, at least in Western countries. I think this is something they should take off. I think it's a little problem, but it's something that exists. I think. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're kind of forgetting as well that, when they were talking about plastic, it only started being using really, what was it, the early 20th century, right? So there was a lot of times when we were not using any plastic at all. So, and children were still able to play, they still had toys, they still had things to do before there was plastic. Well, one of the ways of reducing plastic waste is not using so much plastic in the first place. That's the whole point. Konstantin?
Yes, you're right. We have to reduce, and it's maybe choice of every one of us. But also we have some big, maybe industry player and players, and I say about some big production and manufacturing, such a big. Maybe monopolist, and they make their business using plastic. So it's their choice. But our choice is it is buy it products or not buy. So it's our collective responsibility. But the guys who earn money by producing plastic, they are unstoppable. So I have no idea how to stop them. They just eager and more eager on the power, on their money, and they don't care about anything except of their incomes. So it's a global problem for us. And I have some example. For example, I have example some touristic regions. It's about some island countries, for us, Philippines or maybe Thailand, and they have a lot of tourists, and tourists touristic business is very polluted for our planet. So these islands and our ocean full of plastic, and it is most of the impact it from touristic industry, and also from the some manufacturing and production from industry, I mean. And it's just you can see some review in internet, and you will be surprised about the impact of different kind of industries, and you'll be maybe surprised or maybe not, as field of the industry as agriculture or tourism. They have a very huge impact. So it's not only consumering, but changing maybe some global processes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe there's a few different ways to kind of approach this issue, and to maybe rethink what we're doing to reduce the impact that it has on the world. Okay. Well, we might stop here for today. Thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed the session. I'll put the link here at the bottom for the post. So if you want to add any other comments or any other details, or practice some writing, you can do it there as well, okay? But thank you all very much, and hopefully talk to you all again soon. Bye.